Welcome back, PetaPixel viewers. It is Chris Nichols here coming to you from beautiful Kyoto. We're here for a special event. We're here to play with the brand new Panasonic S9. I have it in my hand. Look, I went with the blue one. So all the lovely music that you guys are listening to in this video on our beautiful trip to Kyoto and Osaka was actually from Audiio.com. It's a fantastic website. We love using it. It's easy for Jordan to find the tracks. I mean, the keyword search is fantastic, or you can search by things like genre, mood, instrument. I mean, so many ways to find solid tracks. And we're done with having to license individual songs. We all have enough subscriptions in our lives, and the great thing about Audiio is you just pay a one-time fee and you get a lifetime subscription to use Audiio.com. And we are giving you PetaPixel's exclusive deal offer here, okay? It's down from $4.99 to $1.99. You're saving $300 there. You won't even find the pricing on their website, it's that good. Just go and put in the offer code PetaPixel199 and get your lifetime subscription today. So the Panasonic S9 is going a very different direction. I mean, this is absolutely aimed at beginners and creators that want to go from shooting straight to sharing. And so this is an interesting concept, something I'm going to have to wrap my head around. Now, we are using pre-production S9s, but they are fairly close to final, but just keep that in mind. This is more of a first look than it is a full review. I also want to point out that Jordan is going to be shooting our entire episode on an S9 as well. He got a green one. And with his S9, he's going to be largely hand holding this and using autofocus to really see how it works in the context it's intended for. So when I first picked up the Panasonic S9 and then saw the launch event and the presentation, my first impression was this camera was really made and aimed at video creators, you know, people who want to shoot open gate recording, they want to record videos, go right to Instagram, right to TikTok, and you absolutely can do that. But talking to the executives and the engineers more, it's actually become quite clear that they're really aiming this at photographers as well, but with a heavy emphasis on LUTs, and I think that's a big part of this camera. We're going to talk about that quite a bit today. Okay, so let's talk about what's inherited from the Panasonic S5 II. So first off, we have the exact same full-frame 24 megapixel sensor, same image quality, and it is a decent sensor for this platform. We also have the exact same screen on the back, fully articulating, borrowed from the S5 II, 1.84 million dot LCD panel. We even have the exact same BLK22 battery. It's amazing that they fit into such a compact body, but they did. Single SD card slot UHS 2 speed. What we don't have, though, unfortunately, is any sort of EVF, and that is driving me crazy. So the first thing you notice about this body is that it is very small. I mean, this harkens back to even cameras like the GX series, and this is kind of what we've been looking for, is this compact rangefinder style kind of camera. Panasonic has at least got the look right on the S9. It is absolutely lightweight and compact. I mean, this is not a weather seal body by any stretch, but it is very easy to carry around. That being said, Panasonic did provide the small rig grip for this, and I'm really happy I have that. It's very comfortable, and I feel like I got a nice secure purchase on the camera. Now here on the back of the camera, you got a nice little thumb grip here, and you can see you've got your color patch here. Panasonic offer these cameras in 4 different colors. You get this blue, red, dark olive, or black, and I'm sure there'll be more custom colors that you can change in the future. But you know, this is still a stripped down camera. I can't help but feel like it's kind of a bare bones experience. Well, as far as command dials go, we've got a front command dial where the shutter goes, exposure comp, record button, on off switch, and our standard mode dial. On the back though, we're back to a thumb wheel, and I'm not a huge fan of thumb wheels. I find that you'll often hit ISO or menu or white balance or something by accident. That is happening as usual here. I am happy to see that we do have an AF on button. I wasn't expecting that, and I am using that quite a bit. And we do have this other button here called LUT, and we are going to talk about that in just a bit. What we don't have on this body is an autofocus joystick of any kind, so again, it is a very minimalistic experience. As far as ports go, we do get a small micro HDMI port. We do have USB-C charging, as well as data transfer. And then here we do have a, look at that little mic port, 3.5 mil, but something else is missing. I can't quite put my finger on it, but maybe Jordan will be able to help us out with that later. Okay, so a very important fact that we have to get across on the Panasonic S9, it has no mechanical shutter, just electronic shutter only, and this is gonna have serious ramifications that might turn off advanced photographers. So the benefits of electronic shutter, it's silent, and of course there's no shake or anything like that, so it's very stable, and so that means you can actually pull off some pretty low shutter speeds handheld because of the excellent IBIS in this. It's the same as the S5 II, and that's a good thing because if your shutter speeds start to creep up faster, you can actually get some flicker problems and some banding issues. Now, the camera does have synchro scan turned on. It's going to try to detect the frequency, the hertz rate of the lighting as it's pulsing and try to correct for that, but you can still have some issues there, and I noticed that if I shoot 200th of a second or faster, I tend to start to see some banding, darker and lighter exposure bands, and that's really unfortunate. So another problem that's going to arise is we don't have a very fast readout speed on this sensor. I mean, it's not a stack chip. It's not made for fast shooting. So one issue you're going to find is that if you've got things moving across the frame, you are going to get strong diagonals forming. It's going to be rolling shutter problems. Also, of course, this is going to eliminate the option to use any sort of flash photography. And if there's any flashes going off when you're shooting, you're going to get weird stuff going on. But also that means that the hot shoe that we have on here isn't hot at all. It's actually a cold shoe. That's fine for mounting something like a shotgun microphone. That's really what they're intending it for. But there's no flash possible here. Now, because this camera has no mechanical shutter, I mean, you can shoot quite fast bursts, up to 30 frames per second, but I wanted to keep it a more moderate burst rate and see what I could get shooting RAW plus JPEG. That way I still have that RAW as a backup in case I don't like the real-time LUT that I've decided to put on the camera. And I'm actually getting a pretty good range. I'm getting about 35 to 36 shots before the camera has to stop. I mean, that's not bad considering. Another interesting thing that we have here is we actually have handheld high-res mode multi-shot. So I can get up to 96 megapixel photos. I can do that handheld. And as long as I'm steady, coupled with the fact this has a great IBIS unit, it actually can pull off some really nice shots. I'd like to make a point here just about the image quality. Now, again, this is pre-production. We can't open the RAW files, but the fact that it is an electronic shutter only, 12-bit RAW is our maximum. We can't shoot 14-bit RAW or anything like that. We are going to take a hit when it comes to dynamic range. I mean, image quality is still good. Low light performance is all right. You know, decent dynamic range. It's still a full-frame sensor, but we are taking a hit compared to something like the S5 II with its mechanical shutter. Now, of course, you do have access to all of the lenses in the L mount line. I mean, absolutely. But given the smaller form factor of this camera, it does really naturally make sense to use smaller, more compact, and thus slower lenses. And so that's also going to hurt your overall low light performance, stuff like that. I could throw a 7200 2.8 on here, or some sort of, you know, giant 85mm 1.4, but the problem is it's going to be really sort of uncomfortable and unbalanced on a body like this. All right, so we're back at the hotel. We've had a great time in Kyoto, but it's getting late. We're hanging out here. It's a little bit loud. But, you know, we got a lot more to talk about. We haven't got into LUTs yet. We have a lot to talk about videos. So day 2 is coming. There's gonna be more. We'll see you guys in a bit. We're gonna get some sleep. Okay, so it's day 2, and you might think, oh, we got to finish our review, but actually we've been tasked by our editor-in-chief, Jaron Schneider, to find him a particular Gundam gacha. You know, he loves that stuff. So he said it's got to be Series 26 Kariban. So we're going to go find it. We're in Nipponbashi. We're going to Gacha Gacha no Mori. Let's see if they actually have one. I don't know. I might be sold out. We'll see. I don't have much money left. We have a LUT to get through here, okay?
Thanks, guys.
It's Jordan's joke. Now, Panasonic wants to also do something different with LUTs here, because what their intention seems to be is to actually replace things like photo styles or picture profiles and try to get everybody on board with the term LUT. Now, if you're in the video world, you already know what lookup tables mean, what the impact is of them. But we're trying to now make it so that everybody uses LUT, at least on Panasonic cameras. In the end, whatever we're going to call them, I guess that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about how these actually work on the camera. So first off, Panasonic is debuting the S9 alongside a brand new app called Lumix Lab. And it's in Lumix Lab that you are going to make all of your creator LUTs. You can download other people's LUTs. You can upload your own LUTs. You can name them whatever you want. You can tweak other people's. I mean, really, one of the unique features here is that Panasonic is trying to democratize the whole process here. Hey guys, I just want to tell you about 3 brand new presets that I just made in the Lumix Lab app for the Panasonic S9. I made autumn leaves, I made crush retro, and I made Neopan 640. These things are awesome. You're gonna wanna have them, and you can download them, have them yourself for like a super low cost. Oh.
Yeah, it's free.
Oh, they're free?
We can't charge for them.
We can't charge for them. Oh, I don't know, steal them. So now I wanna pre-apologize for this next part, because if you guys leave this conversation confused, then you're exactly where we are, okay? This can actually be quite daunting. So, first off, these LUTs are gonna apply just to the JPEGs most of the time. You can also apply it to video as well, absolutely. But you can also go in camera on your RAW files and apply these LUTs to the RAW and do the conversion there. I mean, there's a lot. Generally speaking, this is how it's gonna work on the S9. The beginners are gonna use the sacred button on the back that says LUT, and it's for real-time LUTs, okay? This is very automatic. When you click on this button and you choose one of the LUTs that you've uploaded to the camera or some of the samples that are already preloaded, it's going to kick you out of whatever picture style you're in already. It's going to use the appropriate picture style that the LUT was intended for, and it's going to take over all control of the camera as far as the color goes. Eventually, though, you might want to start looking at my photo styles. Now, I mean, this is nothing new. We've had this before where you can take a photo style, you can add a grain effect, you can tweak things, sharpness, contrast, all that kind of stuff. You can now also apply up to 2 of your LUTs into that photo style, and you could even change the opacity of them. So you can start stacking them together. And this does give you a lot of creative potential. It gives you a lot of time to just tweak and play and have fun. And I think that's exactly what Panasonic is intending. Once you get a handle on how this all works and the dynamics that are involved, it does get a little bit easier. But this is after 2 days of solid use, talking to other people, talking to the engineers to really try to square this away. And even still, I don't understand all of it. There's other tricky things too. Like if I use a LUT that was actually written under the Vlog standard, and then I use that LUT, that is going to put my camera into Vlog, which means now my ISO is not at the base, it's now at 640, right? And that's going to totally change your exposure. If you don't account for that or know how to deal with that can be quite daunting. So some people are going to get stuck there. And I guess what this all means is this. I mean, if you're just going to go into it photographically and treat the LUTs as just a different word now for photo styles, then you've got a lot of creative control to use the app, modify things, customize things, upload them back and forth. That whole process works pretty well and pretty simply, and it can be fun. I am kind of left with the thought, though, that for something that's supposed to be very basic and for what Panasonic's trying to do where they change you over to a whole new way of thinking, it's actually pretty convoluted, and you're probably confused, and I think a lot of people are confused, and I'm still confused, I think. So that could be quite a difficult challenge. It's got a lot of potential, absolutely, and I think going forward in the future, we're probably going to see this app for things like the Panasonic S5 II, and we're going to have the same system for that. So I see that Panasonic is trying to do the hard groundwork now, get us all used to it so that going forward, it makes a lot of sense. And I think the whole process will get more refined, but as it is right now for a beginner, this can be very daunting, and it's going to take a lot of work to really get down to the nitty-gritty of it. In the end, a lot of us are saying, why don't we just go and shoot RAW files and process those RAW files? Maybe that's simpler. So we'll see what the market bears. I think I'm done. I don't know, guys, did I do okay? All right, so I know you guys are tired of listening to me because we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to video. Notice I didn't do Jordan's LUT joke again. So we're gonna cut to him, and I'm gonna shoot him with my Panasonic S9, and I'm gonna use my 3 badass presets.
All right, it's me, Jordan, and it's finally my turn to talk about the video capabilities on the Panasonic S9. But before I start, I want to mention that I am on Chris's crushed retro profile, which I hope looks good. I'm actually a little bit skeptical. But anyways, what is really exciting about this camera is that it uses a lot of the features that we've seen on the S5, a lot of assist tools, things like waveforms, and a lot of the video recording profiles are there as well. But there's some serious stuff that's missing. Now this is a very compact body, so Panasonic understandably had to take away some things to get the size down. Obviously, Chris mentioned the electronic viewfinder, but we're also losing the fan, so you do have some record time restrictions. We're going to talk about those a little bit later, but on top of the camera, it does have a shoe, but it's a cold shoe, and the big limitation there is Panasonic has an excellent 4-channel XLR system that's going to be incompatible with this camera. But something I can't wrap my head around is the complete lack of any way to monitor your audio. There's no headphone jack, and I asked, like, oh, can we just use a USB-C dongle with a headphone jack like Fujifilm does in order to monitor our audio? No. So if you're out shooting in the field like we are right now and suddenly something loud comes through or your microphone drops off your chest, you have no way of knowing. And on a camera that's designed for content creators, that seems like madness. Now you don't have to rely on the real-time LUTs. You can also shoot the classic vlog, which we need in really high contrast situations like this. And you might also be wondering about recording modes. They have been scaled back slightly from the S5 IIX. You still have excellent 422 recording, but you lose access to all eye compression, which does make it a little easier on your computer to edit files, but those are very big. As well, we have no external ProRes RAW. Again, totally makes sense. And there is no ProRes recording just because of the write speed on the cards. Now, all of the formats that we have make perfect sense for this camera. I don't think that's a big loss. Now, I mentioned earlier the lack of a fan does have some implications for this, and that's that as soon as you go over to, say, 6K, it's giving you a 10-minute timer. If you're doing 4K 10-bit 422, 15 minutes. Now that is for recording a single unbroken take, and I can say I've been shooting consistently with this camera in pretty warm weather, and I haven't actually had the camera overheat. Panasonic is generally very conservative with their thermal recommendations, but I'm gonna wait till I have full production firmware, production camera before I run real overheating tests. That said, if you're doing extremely long takes or doing like live music, weddings, things like that, this isn't the camera for you. Okay, next let's talk about open gate recording, which is one of my favorite features on a lot of the Panasonic cameras. And this has the 6K open gate recording that we've seen before on cameras like the S5 II. And essentially what this does is record the entire sensor's 3:2 ratio, and then you can choose your crop afterwards, whether you want 16:9, take a vertical crop of it. Just gives you a ton of nice reframing options. The downside is they're very high data rate. So Panasonic is introducing a new low data rate. It uses 50 megabits per second in H.264, but it's very easy to transfer off to your smartphone. And then you have a smaller file that you can still reframe in some interesting ways. The weird thing is this is the default profile on the camera, so it might be nice if you're planning to quickly do some mobile content creation, but it's far worse than the 4K recording modes, or especially that full 6K open gate. We do have one brand new video feature we've never seen before, and that's Panasonic's hybrid zoom. Now this is different from regular digital zoom. In those, generally you actually have to push a button to zoom it. You feel a little disconnected from your lens. What this does is gives you your full wide angle, and as you start mechanically zooming, actually physically zooming the zoom ring, it's gonna move faster than it normally would, and this gives you extra telephoto reach. So if you're shooting 4K, you get an extra 50% more reach, so like the 20-60 that we're using here becomes a 90mm equivalent lens. If you go down to 1080, you'll actually get 3 times. So suddenly that 60mm is almost a 200mm telephoto, and it looks very good, very seamless. This is a great feature, and I really suspect we'll see it in other Panasonic bodies in the future. Okay, so now we've switched over to one of Chris's custom LUTs using the real-time LUT function. And Chris wants to let you know that this is his Neopan 640. So it emulates Neopan 400, which was actually rated at 640 ISO. He feels it's really important that you all know that, but I just want to talk about the video performance. So Chris has already given a rundown on the real-time LUT, but this is obviously going to be more familiar to video shooters. We're used to using those .cube files to install custom LUTs in our cameras, and essentially what real-time LUT does is it just lets you bake it directly onto the footage. Now, in stills, you can shoot RAW plus JPEG and still have flexibility afterwards, but if you're recording video, you're going to have to choose. Do I apply the real-time LUT and sacrifice a lot of dynamic range and post flexibility, or do I record vlog and use those same .cube files in post? Now for me, doing YouTube, I know I'm obviously going to choose to record in vlog and have the flexibility. Now remember, this is primarily a limitation of using this new camera. If you were to go over to the S5 II or S5 IIX, you have dual card slots, so you could actually have a proxy file with the real-time LUT built in, record standard vlog to the other card, and then you have the same kind of redundancy that we have in photo. It's just not available in the S9 here. Now I do really like that the app gives you access to a whole bunch of free LUTs. It's kind of like a cool shop that you can browse and find exactly the look that you're going for. That's quite cool. But I find it really weird that this camera ships with just 3 unlabeled sample LUTs, sample LUT 1, 2, and 3. I really wish Panasonic had included a bunch of really cool different LUTs that you could experiment with right out of the box. That seems like a real oversight to me. So I don't think this is for YouTubers. This is for people doing Reels and TikTok, and they're just going to shoot it right in camera, use the app to send it right out without editing, and have a deliverable with the look that they like. And in that case, I can see this making some sense. All right, so Chris is now using his custom autumn leaves built on the old Sony profile that people used all the time. And one thing that's been carried over from the S5 II that I absolutely loved is we've got the latest firmware version of their stabilization. It has the digital stabilization high. It's very, very stable. And we've got the autofocus improvements as well. So it's actually quite sticky. So stabilization, autofocus are absolutely cutting edge on this camera. What? So after shooting for a couple days with the S9, it does feel very familiar to what I'm used to with the S5 II, but that also makes its limitations stand out so much more. I'm constantly pushing my eye against a viewfinder that doesn't exist. And the control structure on it, I do find the back dial incredibly easy to adjust, so my shutter angle is shifting constantly. There are some real drawbacks in that manner. But if you're just using it for quick shoot and immediate delivery, especially to platforms like TikTok and Reels, then I could see it being quite effective for that, but I wish there was some way for me to monitor my audio. That is still the biggest oversight on this camera. So I absolutely adore the S5 II, S5 IIX cameras, and you're getting so much of the quality at a very good price in this camera. So one way to look at it is, if you don't need access to audio monitoring or long record times, then you are getting a pretty capable camera for only $1,500 US. So how does this camera compare to other similar price models? The first one I thought about immediately was the Sony ZV-E1. It's the exact same kind of target audience, and that is a more expensive camera, but it has huge advantages. You're getting a headphone jack, a hot shoe, better autofocus on that, less rolling shutter, and better slow motion recordings. I mean, the Panasonic does still have some advantages. It's got better LUT support and certainly much better stabilization, but overall the Sony might be worth the price premium. For a similar price, you could also take a look at the Fujifilm X-S20. That camera is going to get you an EVF, headphone jack, faster readout on it, and if you like playing with the image, you have those excellent Fujifilm film simulation modes, quite similar to LUTs. That being said, that is physically quite a bit bigger camera, and the stabilization is still quite a bit better on the S9 as well. You've got a full frame sensor there. But honestly, the biggest competition is the S5 II. It's one of my favorite cameras on the market right now. It's only $300 more. Yes, it is certainly a bit larger, but if you're really into taking content creation seriously, I think that offers so much more for a marginal price increase.
So playing with the camera here, I mean, what I'm excited about is it is such a compact system. This is something that we've been asking for from Panasonic, but I don't know if the rest of the camera is really fulfilling what we were hoping for. I mean, so much hinges on this real-time LUT and people adopting it and wanting to use it, wanting to make their own custom features, because if you take that away from the Panasonic S9, what you're left with is a very bare bones basic camera. It's already not going to please advanced photographers. They're going to feel that they're missing out on customization and control. And although it's a really cute small form factor, I don't think that's enough to make up for the fact that this camera has a much better option for just a few $100s more in the S5 II, where you're going to get a really capable camera that honestly will probably have access to these LUTs in the future anyways. So as much as I wanted the Panasonic S9 to be more like a full-frame GX9 with better controls than the EVF, I do have to admit there were some situations where I actually had quite a bit of fun with this camera. I had far more fun than I thought I would playing with Lumix Lab, making my own LUTs, and then trying them out on the streets and seeing what kind of results I was going to get. Whether you're going to enjoy this camera or not, I think really depends on you as a photographer. I know for myself, I'm just going to go back to using RAW files and editing things afterwards. But again, Panasonic's goal is to get rid of the editing process and just go from shooting straight to whatever your output media is. So leave in the comments below what you guys think. Is this camera for you? Is this something you're gonna find interesting or not at all? Also, I gotta say big thanks to, first off, Who is Matt and Benj for helping us out here today, because you need two people to hold a reflector. We've also had a great time with all the other friends and YouTubers that we've seen on this event. Regardless, guys, we had a great time in Osaka, but it is time to leave. So do check out the PetaPixel podcast if you can on the exact same channel here, or all your favorite podcasting apps. But otherwise, we will see you soon with more from PetaPixel shortly.